Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this first annual Jewish Fertility Support Summit. It is so exciting to be in a room with all of you talking about something that deserves so much of our communal attention. My name is Ariella Mortkowitz, and I'm the founding director of Stiva, a space in the Jewish community dedicated to creating a more nourishing communal faith experience for Jewish women. We are diverse, we are multi-generational, and we come together in celebration and support of women, our strengths, our unique perspectives, and our lived experiences. Everything that Sviva does is always inspired and designed by you, and tonight is no different. Sviva is built on the idea of making certain that the ways that we come together as community are nourishing and supportive, connective, and authentic, which is why it has been the most tremendous privilege to work with Dr. Amy Barron, and I was supposed to have a baby to make tonight come to life. Just a little story as a background. At Sviva's very first gathering, I will never forget it. It was a cold winter night a couple of years ago. We brought together almost 100 women who were diverse in age and life stage and background, and we split them into groups of 4 and asked them to answer this question by way of getting to know one another. Can you describe a time in your life when you wish that Jewish community had shown up better for you? Which is a great question to answer and think about for yourself as well. But to a T, in every single group of 4, there was at least one woman who answered, when I was struggling to have a child. It was shocking to see the statistics that we talk about all the time literally come to life. Tonight is incredibly special. And before I introduce Amy, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page tonight. There is sadly no way that we can possibly get to know everyone in the room with us tonight, although we want to, we really, really want to. We're asking you to seek us out, to seek out our speakers, to seek each other out. This is what community is about, these connections. And in the room with us tonight, we have those who are in the middle of a fertility journey, those who have moved past that experience, those who love someone who is struggling, and amazing communal professionals and leaders who are here to learn from all of us how to be more of a support for those who need it. It's a powerful room. I hope you can feel that. And I hope you can feel the love that is filling this space tonight. I hope that you can see on your screen the expectations for tonight, how we can come together. When Sviva gathers, we always do it with some clear expectations. We want to ask you to please show up with kindness and compassion and sensitivity. Please feel comfortable to come as you are. If you want to remain anonymous or use a pseudonym, please do. Bugs Bunnies are most welcome. We hope you'll get more comfortable. Keep your camera on or off. It's up to you, although we do love to see your faces. Please connect with each other. The chat will be open all night for you to share and connect, and we'd love that you do that. Please do. Please understand also that this room is diverse. People from all backgrounds and walks of life. Please don't make any assumptions about anyone, be welcoming, and we ask that you translate if you can, both the fertility references that you might be making or seeing for those who may not be as familiar with them as you are, as well as some of the Jewish references so that the conversation can be accessible to everyone. As always, what is shared here stays here. Please agree to create a safe space for everyone. And last, authenticity, honesty, and vulnerability are the only way that we know how to be together. Please come as you are, your laundry in the background, cats in front of the screen, tears, sarcasm, tissues, all of it. Tonight is as real as it gets. I don't think Amy or I know how to do anything different. I'm so grateful to be in a room with all of you, with all of our phenomenal speakers who spend their every day working to support everyone that crosses their paths. We want you to meet them. We want you to know them as they are, not as their websites or their organizations, but the fantastic women they are who show up to this work every day with compassion, care, and love. Thank you to each of you for being here. And with that, I get to introduce the woman who envisioned every piece of tonight's gathering and wanted to just build a room that felt like a giant hug. Amy Barron, thank you for bringing us together tonight. It's all yours.
I actually didn't think I was going to cry, and I kind of am. So, everyone, welcome. Thank you for being here. You, the 21-year-old who might be the first one in your class to get married, the first one who was pregnant, and then a day before your due date, your baby stopped kicking. And now, not only do you hear those whispers of your friends and your neighbors as you walk down the street because no one knows what to say to you, but everyone else is having their babies and you feel left behind. You might be the 26-year-old who had a hysterectomy last week after uterine cancer and now can only have a baby through a surrogate if you can ever find the money to do that. You might be the grandmother who doesn't know what to say or what to do as you watch your children, your daughter, go through multiple miscarriages. You might be the partner who just found out that the baby that you were hoping for, that baby that you've been praying for years, has multiple medical anomalies, and you've made the decision to terminate. Or you might be the 40-year-old who feels like her biological clock is ticking, and you've just sat through multiple failed IVF cycles, and you don't know if you'll ever hold a baby in your arms. This summit is for all of you. Do you see that woman in the picture? It's for all of you. Why? Why are we in 2021 finally having this large-scale summit to talk about support in the Jewish community? Why has it taken us so long to get to this point? Honestly, I don't think so many things have shifted in the last 5 or so years. I mean, the statistics are the same. 1 in 8 couples experience infertility. About 1 in every 4 pregnancies end in a loss. But instead, now we seem to be in this space where we're comfortable talking about difficult things. And we recognize that infertility or pregnancy loss or any kind of struggle to build a family is not anyone's fault. Instead, it's this universal creed, universal thing that binds us regardless of race, religion, geography, whatever it is. And this desire is a fundamental need. It's a fundamental biological need.
Yeah, everyone's video.
So we're finally talking about it in synagogues, at community programs, with virtual and in-person support groups. We're offering financial aid packages. We're educating and training healthcare workers and clergy. We're doing all of these things. So many of these initiatives have popped up in the last 2 decades or so. One, A Time, has actually been here for the longest, even longer than that. And each of these organizations that you will meet today, they each do vital work on the ground. Today, we are going to do what they do in a more concentrated way, because we want each of you to leave this summit feeling like you finally have been seen. You finally know how to help your friends. You finally know where to turn when someone in your life is struggling. Because we can't possibly do justice to this topic in 90 minutes. As Ariella mentioned, you can't even get to know these organizations on an intimate level or any of their programming in 90 minutes. But here's what you can do. You, the one who's struggling, we see you. And we see that you're doing this whole program so that all of these people, so they can see you too. You, the one supporting, we know it's hard. We know you feel like there is nothing you can possibly do or say that will ever make a difference. You sputter, you can't find the right words, you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. You can't ever get anything right, it seems. And tonight is not going to be a magic pill, but it will help. And you can reach out to any one of us if you're struggling along the way to try to help your loved one. And you, the professionals in the space, welcome. You know, you have a wellspring of resources to pull from the next time somebody walks into your office crying. You too are not alone anymore. Honestly, I just can't wait for you to meet these amazing women who are holding the hands of thousands in our community. They are awe-inspiring, and the work they do is holy. So let's get started. We will start with individual questions to each of the representatives, with tiny breaks from our incredibly generous sponsors, which we'll tell you about a little bit later. And then for the second half, we will move to breakout rooms so that you can get to know each of the representatives a little bit better. And then finally, we'll close with a surprise and a call to action. So, Ariella.
I am thrilled to kick us off and let us get to know all of these amazing women here as quickly as possible. Amy, watching you work, it just makes my heart want to burst. And I actually can't think of a better way to start us off than with offering you the opportunity to answer this question. I'd love to hear you reference your thoughts. It's been sitting with me a while as we've been planning this and talking it through. But this, for me, is kind of the question that frames everything tonight. If the Jewish community holds family as such a precious Jewish value, why is there still such a communal stigma about different pathways to parenthood? I want to hear you talk about why we're not doing a better job embracing and even celebrating fertility treatments and adoption and surrogacy and fostering and egg and sperm donation, all of it as miraculous. And they seem so in line with the Jewish valuing of family and continuing generations. Why are they still stigmatized instead of celebrated? And for you, what are some ways, in addition, obviously, to fabulous conversations like the one we're having tonight, where you think we can start to change that?
Look, I first need to say that.
Who's there?
Oh, let's first need to say before we do anything that I'm reminding everyone that fertility is a messy space, and there are lots and lots and lots of people here, and we love all of the different kinds of people. But in order to make sure that we're all heard, please try to keep your voices muted so that the speakers can get a chance to speak. That's my request. Thank you. But Bonei Olam actually is an integral part of this summit, and due to an unforeseen circumstance, they were unable to join us tonight. And they were the ones who were supposed to answer this question. And I thought that this was a perfect question for the organization Bonei Olam. And I'm going to sort of try to answer it for them if they'll allow me. Bonei Olam, since 1999, has set its mission to provide means or resources necessary to allow childless couples facing infertility the opportunity to pursue medical fertility treatment. Now, when you're asking the question of why is this still such a problem? The answer is, I really don't know, because we have so many of these organizations that are doing such incredible work. like Boneh Alam, who specifically saw that it's not only that these individuals couldn't necessarily get to doctors or the treatments were failing, but it was that the individuals couldn't pay for their treatments. We had insurance companies or people couldn't fork over the money to pay out of pocket for these treatments. And that was the barrier for them to have a family. And so they developed this organization primarily to help that aspect of it. Look, but what I think personally is that I think that for us in the Jewish community, that we have children. Children are made in the bedroom, right? And that is a private, intimate act between two people. And I've talked to thousands and thousands of couples who view these kinds of treatments and these kinds of appointments and these kinds of procedures that they're going through as their bedroom, so to speak, that they view this as their private time because they don't have the option to have a natural pregnancy. And so I think some of the stigma that goes along with all of this is that it's still, we don't talk about, oh, by the way, you know, I'm planning on having a baby in 9 months, so we're gonna go now. Or I wanna have another baby next year, so I'm gonna plan it out and we're gonna do it then. Like, we don't have these kinds of open conversations in the Jewish community, and that's okay. But the difference is that so many of these families, so many of these individuals are struggling, and we need to do a better job supporting them as they're going through all of these difficulties.
Amy, thank you. I really appreciate that framing to this entire conversation. I'm going to keep us on track and get to introduce one of the most phenomenal women who I've had the privilege of working with before. I get to introduce Keila Block, who is the founder and executive director of Yesh Tikva, which focuses a lot actually on raising awareness and communal sensitivity, talking about stigmatization around the fertility experience. So Gila, it is so great to have you here with us tonight. Thank you for being here. You've been such a great voice in helping us gain a better appreciation of what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. I really appreciate that, both on a personal level and on a communal level. So I'm going to ask you if we can talk a little bit about exactly what Amy was referencing, privacy and stigma. What has been your experience in seeing individuals struggle with how to share their struggle or loss and who to tell without sharing so publicly? And what do you think are some of the barriers for people feeling comfortable sharing?
Thank you so much. This is such a special and momentous occasion that we are all here today, and so honored to be able to answer that question. I think that to piggyback off of what Amy was saying, the most important thing that we need to remember is that infertility, whether it is in the Jewish community or in any community, is not something that we speak about, and neither is fertility. Most of us do not learn about our fertility, whether it is in sex ed courses or from our doctors or at any point in our life until we're thrown into the world of infertility. So because the conversation is not had, it automatically stigmatizes it. Another piece to it, as Amy pointed out, is that so much of what goes on is so connected to our sex lives, which is so private and so stigmatized. And it's hard to be the one to say, I need help. I need support. I'm struggling with something that 7 out of 8 people have so naturally. I'm different, I'm other. And here you are, the rest of the world, having exactly what I want and can't have. How do I turn to you and say I need that support? So it makes it so difficult to take that first step, so vulnerable, to be able to, in essence, other yourself from the rest of the world, to ask for that support. I think that in order for us to help end that stigma and really break that barrier down, conversations like what we're having tonight, speaking about infertility, speaking about its reality, both how it impacts us as fertility and as infertility, is going to get us closer to a space in which we could reach out to other people and say, listen, I'm struggling, and whether that boundary between privacy and secrecy needs to be met, and something that is so very different also in the notion of how we treat the conversation is that there's a big difference between privacy and secrecy. Secrecy is something that we keep away from everyone. It's this conversation that we never have, versus privacy is, I'm going through something. I'm not going to share all the details, but I need your support. Please lend me that support right now without asking any questions, and being able to bridge that divide between what is secret, the details for some people, versus for other people, the comfort of being able to share every detail from the rooftop, and also being able to bridge everything in between and give people the space to really be able to share how they're comfortable, when they're comfortable, without pushing them to share too many details too soon. Thank you.
Gila, that was absolutely incredible. I love the way you talked about privacy versus secrecy. I have many conversations about that in the work that I do, and it's so important for people to really recognize that just because something is private doesn't mean that it's shameful, and secrets are very different than being private. And so I love the way you made that juxtaposition. Okay. Now I have the absolute pleasure of turning the tables, and I am going to speak to Malki Claristenfeld, who is the director and founder of Kinefayim, which is an organization that confronts challenges of perinatal loss. I was lucky to meet Malki when I was working with Nechama Comfort many years ago, and you are so all very lucky to meet her tonight. Malki is K'nai Nahara, as we say. She is very blessed to have 8 children, but she unfortunately is the silent mother of 19, and took her own personal experiences and channeled them into running Kinefayim. So Malki, as now we turn the tables a little bit and talk about loss, tell us, if someone just found out about a loss, someone in your community or someone you know just found out about a loss, what are some suggestions that what you would offer them as to how to show up in support for their friend, their family member, or their community member?
So thank you very much, Amy. And yes, I remember that meeting. It was very powerful and impactful, and I too feel blessed about that meeting. I learned a lot. So thank you, Amy, and thank you for this work. But I'm even more thankful about the question that you gave specifically to me, because it is the friends, it is the communities that play the vital part of the support for a family experiencing a loss. So my response is going to be based on my own personal experience, as you said, of experiencing 19 loss, as well as the over 1,500 new clients that I get to meet over the years. I live it, I breathe it, I hear it. And I believe that this is what you're actually looking for. So losing a pregnancy is challenging, and us as supporters, we need to recognize that there's so much unfamiliar territory of the family's anguish and the pain that needs to be addressed. But us as supporters, what we need to do is that we want to acknowledge the loss so that she could feel safe, so that this family, this couple, the children could feel safe to handle all their stormy emotions. And what we think might be the right approach might be very, very different than what your friend actually thinks is comforting and supportive. Put together a small list of what I think is important to offer to people when they're supporting someone that experienced a loss. We need to give people the space and permission to grieve and to mourn what they just lost. For the most part, let's not ignore our friends. Let's remember them. Try to find the right word to say. I wish this wouldn't have happened. Don't hover over her. Allow her to flex her wings and to master the art of living in the aftermath of her loss. And recognize that this is big and there's a new art that she's learning. Most people don't really know what grief is. It's not like what you think it really looks like. And post-delivery, people are really grieving for a very, very, very long time. Months down the road, she's still going to appreciate that you will remember where she is at. Don't forget your friends' losses. Remember them on the due date. Remember them on the anniversary of the loss. Acknowledge it, remember it for many, many years to come. Next year, and next year and next year. What I would say from a personal perspective, and something actually that I heard today from a woman that told me that when other people remember and help me, that holds the memory, and this helps me heal. Because if you remember it too, then you honor my child and proclaim that this must have been important. And just the last few seconds that I have, I would like to share with you a few lines from a letter that one of our clients shared with me that was written to her dear friend. I know you know that this loss is very painful for me. Yet, where there is love, there is pain. I want you to know that this is extremely painful at times, but I will get through it and I will live again. One day I will move forward. I hope that I will not always feel as I do now. I hope to be able to laugh once again, but I would like to thank you about caring about me. Your concern is the biggest gift that I will always treasure. My dear friend, please treat me normally. I am normal. It is the situation that is not.
Wow. Malki, as someone who many of you know, Malki, you know this, but many of you also know, I had many, many losses myself. That letter hit me right here in my core. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Malki, I realized that we started and I was 2 seconds too late to sit down and get us going. My tissues are too far away. And you're reminding me to reach out to all of the friends whose hands I held too many years ago and haven't checked in on since. Thank you for that reminder. That validation is so critical and important, and that forgetting is not possible. Thank you for reminding me how to be a better friend. I am thrilled to be able to introduce Rabbi Idit Solomon, who is the founder and CEO of Hasidah. Idit, I gotta be honest, the question that I've got for you is a little bit terrifying for me. I don't know how on earth to even begin to broach this one. And I'm already anxious. I feel my heart racing thinking about asking this out loud. How might you suggest someone broach the topic if they think that someone is struggling? It's real, it's very real, but terrifying to vocalize.
Well, it's interesting. It's a great question. And before I even answer it, I think part of it's in how you asked it. And that's to say, like, why is this even a question? If you care about someone, you just ask. But I think that the reality is because so many of us have been through this, know that people can say some really stupid stuff and be very insensitive. And I think many people might have really good intentions, but it doesn't come out that way. It's not delivered. So I think that if you want to broach the topic with someone because you think they're struggling, there's some questions you can ask yourself, really. And part of it is what relationship you have with them. What's your connection? Is this person someone close to you? Do you have a mutual friendship? Are you maybe a mentor to them, a confidant? You've already shared these things, or do you have a pastoral role? Basically, you're asking, is it your place to be talking with them about it? Because you might be talking about their health, their finances, very intimate topics. So are you really the person to be asking this question? And the other thing about the way you asked it is you said, if you think someone is having a struggle, and I think that that's really important. Because what do you know? And if you're asking because you're curious, then don't ask, because that's about you and your curiosity, so stop. And the other reason is if you think someone is going through a struggle, the reality is that infertility could be a million different things. They could be in the process of waiting for something. They could have just experienced a loss. There may be medical issues, there may be not, maybe they're trying, maybe they're facing financial issues. You may think you're walking on tiptoes, but if you ask me the question, it may feel like an invasion. So you have to consider where the other person is. if you think it's because you want to give them advice, I just don't talk to them. There's no room for advice here. You don't know what's best for anyone, and it's really up for them to figure that out. So not if you're looking for advice. I think that the reason you do want to ask someone, and this is just important that you have the intention, am I prepared to listen and support them? Because that's the only reason to ask. It's the only reason to be involved. Because you can maybe help them sort through priorities or just let them lament and weep. Maybe you could offer to research different options for them. Most importantly, you can remind them that they're not alone, that you love them and you'll be there. If you do want to consider mentioning it in any way, I think the most important thing is to give someone an out. By that mean, tell them that they don't have to respond, because the other reason this is so painful, especially if you've been through this on the other end, is that people feel the need to shelter your feelings. Because if you ask me, I may want to explode, and then all of a sudden you need to protect your feelings. And that's really unfair when I'm really dealing with my own landslide of emotions right now. And then I'm trying to protect the person who asked this question. Here is where actually technology helps us. Phone, email, even texts can be okay for this type of communication because it gives people the space not to be confronted in person. One of the ironies of COVID is it does allow you to maybe send that note to someone and they can respond to it in their own space. And it's important that you share upfront, like, because I care about you and I want what's best for you, I was thinking about your family building plans. And you can add, if you wanted me to check in again, just check in and send you love and support, count me in, I'm gonna do it. If you do not want me to bring it up again, I won't. And then your job is to listen. And the last thing is, then just do what they've asked.
It's beautiful. I think so many of us, especially when we do come from a place that's well-intended, it's wanting to help. And it's so hard to not be able to, and it's our default to try to just insert ourselves in a way that we scramble around trying to think that we're offering something that's helpful. And I so appreciate the many layers of how to approach this and the different ways to just sensitively walk forward slowly so that you can show up in a way that can be received well. It's so hard to just put yourself out there and say, I just want to be here and not do or fix or anything. It's so complicated. Thank you so much. I get to introduce one of our amazing sponsors for tonight. We get to hear a short clip from Mays Men's Health.
Hi, I'm Chaya. I'm the andrologist here at Mays Labs, and I'm project manager for our Extended Sperm Search and Microfreeze, ESSM. Owner and founder, Dr. Michael Werner, has always been passionate about family. In his search to help couples struggling with infertility, he researched and discovered the revolutionary ESSM protocol. We have been performing ESSM for just over a year and have been successful in recovering sperm in 40% of men previously diagnosed with azoospermia. We are the only lab in the United States to offer this groundbreaking procedure with an advanced microfreeze technique. Our mission is to help every couple have the family they have always wanted. It's a life-changing opportunity, and we hope to continue spreading awareness about ESSM at Mays. You can find us on our website, mayslabs.com.
I actually had the distinct pleasure to interview Dr. Michael Werner on the I Was Supposed to Have a Baby YouTube Insta Live, where he talked all about that procedure, this groundbreaking procedure, which only exists in 2 places in the world, in Israel and here in the United States in his lab for specific sperm extraction. And so for anyone that this might be part of your challenges, I recommend you reach out to Mays Labs. They are absolutely groundbreakingly incredible. Okay, now we are next going to go to Alana Frank. So Alana, it is my biggest pleasure to have you here. Look, you are the founder, the CEO of Jewish Fertility Foundation. but you've had your own very tortuous, but ultimately successful fertility journey. And in addition to founding and expanding JFF, you're also very passionate about embryo adoption. That's your side gig. Definitely reach out to her afterwards if this is something that you're interested in. But tonight, because of your own personal experiences and the way you run JFF, we've decided your question is, as someone who has felt at loss during many different parts of your life where you felt left behind, what do you say to someone who tells you that they've lost community or they have been left behind by their peers because they're no longer in the same peer group or in the same phase of life? Also, just because that question isn't loaded enough, what would you say or what would you advise our community leaders by way of increasing sensitivity to these families or these singles who are still not yet at a place where they're with their peers and they're pulling back from community? And we have, as a community, we have an ability to reach them. How would you address that? Two really tiny topics I'm sure you can do in 3 minutes. Go.
I'm on. And first of all, I don't want you to get hate mail. It's not called embryo adoption. It's called embryo donation. The lawyer,
donation,
the therapist are going to get at you. So
okay, see, I've been doing this work for eons and eons, and I still make mistakes with terminology.
It's a sensitive topic. I just don't want you to get hate mail after this.
Okay.
All right.
Bring the hate mail on. I'm okay. I came by it honestly. It's all good.
You did. Thank you. Okay, so one of the things that through my 12 years and 3 kids, I learned that you would be surprised with how many people actually want to help you, but honestly just don't know how. And so one of the things that I learned through various therapy sessions is figuring out what I needed at the time that I was going through my journey, and figuring out like what were my triggers when I was feeling left behind, whether it was by my peers, by my husband, by my parents, figuring out exactly what it was I needed. And I think it was also key for me to understand I actually needed different things from different people at different times throughout the journey. So for instance, friends with babies, I wanted the most part to be included and invited to the brisses, the baby namings, the birthday parties. Even if I had my own kids at this time, I also wanted them to understand that at various points throughout the journey, it was okay to opt out. And I opted out of a Mother's Day brunch, and I had 2 young kids at home, but I was struggling for that third and going through crazy amounts of treatments. And I had to opt out, and that was okay because I made it okay. Siblings, 2 of my siblings were pregnant at the same time. One of them called me up and said, hey, I want to take you to lunch. Let's talk. I'm like, crap, you're pregnant. I knew it, but I so appreciated her telling me prior to announcing it on social media. And then the second sibling felt like it would be better to keep it kind of hush hush because she knew I was going through things. And for me at that time, it felt horrible, but I didn't know how to ask and I didn't know how to share. Also with my husband, my own partner, we were not always on the same page. I felt left behind many times, but through therapy, I was able to help figure out what did I need from him at various points, whether it was just talking, just holding me, figuring out the plan, how are we going to pay for it, all of that. And it changes over time as well. And I knew for my parents to ask them, my mom, every time I had a failure or a loss, don't give me that look of pity. I didn't know what else I really needed. I knew what I didn't need from her. And I still think about that today. But moral of the story is surround yourself with people who are going through similar journeys. And even though there's differences within your friends and your peers at the time, figure out what you can include in your life to make you feel good for that moment. Okay, community leaders, what can we do to make sure that people are at less risk of pulling out? Speak out, talk about it. Don't make it awkward. It's really hard during high holidays, Chagim, when you're mentioning all these new babies born. Create a new tradition, create a prayer, acknowledge people, recognize the importance that perhaps people are struggling. at a baby naming or a bris. Talk about these things. Talk about infertility. Say a prayer. Make up a prayer for people who might be having a really hard time coming out actually to that bris or baby naming. Learn about what is going on locally and now nationally with Zoom. All these amazing organizations are offering support. Learn about what they are and offer them and share to your congregants how they can get support to feel included when they're perhaps not included in your community at that moment. Counsel during premarital counseling, not only about the importance of genetic screening like J-screen, but also that infertility actually might be a problem. So people aren't shocked like me that it was an issue. And last but not least, create programming, not only for those who are struggling with infertility or who are choosing to live childless at this moment, but also for the singles in your community and for people who don't necessarily have traditional families.
Absolutely. There is so much out there. There is so much that as community leaders, all of you can do to make things feel more inclusive. And we have lots of ideas. Alana has lots of ideas, but please reach out to all of us and we can help. And we can help direct you to resources, to people and organizations that are already doing this kind of work. So absolutely. Ariella, you're up.
That was very impressive, Alana. Okay, Ellie Moore, you're up. I am thrilled to be able to raise this question with you tonight. Ellie Moore Reisman is part of the PUA Cares team. If you don't know about PUA, take a second to look them up because it is fascinating how they focus on the combination of fertility science and education around reproductive medicine in the Jewish community. Ellie Moore, this is another biggie. Can we talk about faith and fertility in 3 minutes?
Okay.
Can you share some of, I'd love for you to just, if you have can you share some of what individuals have shared with you, some of the themes that have come up in their struggles with faith through their fertility journey?
Sure. Okay. This is a very hard question because faith is so personal when it comes to the fertility journey. There are some women who take upon themselves rituals and prayers and do anything to hold on to God, while others are like, God, where are you? Why are you doing this to me? What did I do to deserve this? Why me? I have no strength for this. And both exist and both are okay. And the same one woman could have both feelings throughout her fertility journey. So my message to you tonight is that no matter where you're at and how you're feeling, hold on to the hope. And it's so appropriate that this summit is on the same week of the holiday of Purim, because to me, Purim is the festival of hope. There was bleak, dark sadness that turned into light. And it was during the dark that Queen Esther, a woman, was the one that said, go unite the Jewish people, go bring everyone together. And that's what this night is all about. Here we are, we're all united, 11 organizations united, coming together. And it was the unity that changed the darkness to the light. And here we are all united, we're all together, all holding hands, all here to support you and all here to remind you that no matter where you're at your fertility journey, whether you're taking upon rituals and praying, or whether you don't see God right now, internalize the message of Purim, internalize the festival of hope, hold on to it and never let go. And we promise, no matter what you do, we won't let go of you.
I think that piece is so important, that part of faith is recognizing how other people show up in your life when you feel left alone, when you feel isolated, when you feel abandoned, even by God, that there are other people who can cross your path and show up in God's stead. I think we get to hear from another one of our sponsors now. We have CCRM coming up.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Levine, and I'm the founding partner and practice director of CSRM New York, located in Midtown Manhattan. It is truly my honor and privilege to be able to help patients achieve their reproductive goals. The path to parenthood is not easy. It's different for everyone, and for some people, it's a really challenging journey. We know that it's both emotionally expensive and physically expensive, and can also be financially expensive at times. With that said, the doctors at CCRM New York are completely committed to helping patients achieve their goals. Our success is truly our patient's success. And whatever we can do to use science or innovation or support, we are willing to do, because in the end of the day, we want to help our patients. We hope that you'll come visit us at our clinic in Midtown or on the web or any of our social media accounts. Thank you and good luck on your journey.
Thank you, Dr. Levine from CCRM. CCRM is one of our gold sponsors, and we are so blessed to have them as part of the summit. I just want to tally back to what Ellie Moore just said, and you spoke so much about hope and about that travel through faith and the undulating waves of like when it goes up and goes down. There were so many times where I could not see the hope at all. It was so difficult and it was so hard, and I would yell and scream and beg and plead and say, this is not working. I am not happy, and you are punishing me over and over and over again. And it was so hard to see the hope. And I appreciate very much what you had to say in the sense that peace does ebb and flow. The relationship that some of us have with someone above, we know that the anger comes out of love. If you have that anger, it comes out of a place of love. But even if you're not connected, it's very, very common for people who are going through this journey to feel more connected. Some of them feel more connected to Judaism, and some of them feel very much less connected to Judaism. And so it's all pieces of that puzzle, and all of you belong here. I am now going to speak with Mrs. Bronnie Rosen from A Time. Mrs. Bronnie Rosen is, it's my biggest pleasure because I know almost everyone in A Time, and Bronnie is the last friend that I've met in A Time. I know everyone around her, and finally I got to speak to the big kahuna. Bronnie is the founder and director of A Time. She's the founder and the director of member services. Really, I mean, A Time almost 30 years ago was developed because Bronnie and her husband, Rabbi Rosen, found themselves struggling through infertility in a world that wouldn't even say the word. This kind of conference couldn't exist. There was no one to ask about doctors. There was no one to receive support from. And so she and her husband, Rabbi Rosen, made a promise that if they could be helped, that they would then take that and help everyone and everything they could in order to be able to make sure that no couple would ever feel alone. So I know personally that I reached out to A Time during different points of my journey of secondary infertility and multiple losses. And I always felt this extraordinary just hug from them. It just this warmth. And I'm so grateful that we get to talk to you now here. I get to talk to you now here. So Bronnie, your question is, can you share with us a variety of reasons why people don't have children and how we need to increase our sensitivity and understanding around this? And we all know that this list is a million miles long, right? Like we can't possibly do this justice, but I'm going to beg you to try.
So thank you, Amy, and thank you, Ariella, and thank you all of you for joining. It's just, I feel like I'm dreaming. I did go through infertility completely alone. It's incredible. I think we're making history tonight. Amy, so it is hard to put it into those few minutes, but I can tell you what infertility, what isn't the cause of infertility. You are not the cause of infertility. It's not something you did. It's not being religious enough. It's not being nice to your mom. It's not changing your clothing. It's a journey that this is a Jewish forum, our matriarchs, our moms, they lived this journey. They were awesome women. So I believe they're in our audience. I believe the people I am looking at are the Sarah, the Rivka, the Rachel, and the Leahs of today. But we do believe in medicine, and we do believe that, you know, there are things that do cause infertility. So I'm going to take an attempt to just give you some of the ideas. So the first thing I like to say is that people have this assumption that, oh, they don't have a baby, that it's probably her. But infertility is both the male and the female. So we like to look at it as a couple's issue. So even if we get, oh, I didn't see it that way when I was going through infertility. I have severe PCOS. I thought I was the problem. But over the years, I realized this was something that was meant for both of us as a couple. So we do see the same amount of male as female. So just some of the things, hormonal issues, PCOS, so common, diminished ovarian reserve. Sadly, we have a 20-year-old girl who has the levels of a 50-year-old woman. Tubal blockages, uterine issues, endometriosis, age. So I just want to stop for 2 minutes and speak to you about egg freezing. This is something that excited me so much. I saw it at the ASRM when they announced the first successful baby born from an egg freeze. I encourage anyone who's here who has not yet met their loved one to do the egg freeze. Do the egg freeze. It's allowed rabbinically across the board. It's an amazing idea. Men with their sperm counts, low sperm counts. We just saw one of the sponsors that are doing amazing work with sperm counts. Motility, blockages, varicocele, genetic. This goes on and on.
I know. Give me 2 more. We can't. I know. I
do want to say, Amy, I'm going to just tie it up with, of course, there's pelvic pain, painful relations. We've seen marriages that haven't been consummated. So yeah, I can go on and on, but the message to all of you listening here today is coming to understand that a diagnosis may take time. For the ones that are watching, for your loved ones, don't make assumptions. Don't do the referrals. Send them to the people who really know. Just love them. Just love them, appreciate them for who they are. But I do want to end. And Amy, we were talking about mental, people who can't even, people choose not to have children. There's so many reasons.
Right.
I just want to end, and of course the stress. I just want to say that the same God that holds the key to reign, the God that holds the key to reign, holds the key to children. And regardless of what we've seen in the laboratories, and they're amazing, the first test tube babies only in her 30s, my syringe had hormones from menopausal women. It was a natural product 30 years ago. Look how far we've come. But the person, God is really the one that can help you conceive. So that's just my closing message to, yes, we do everything medically, and then we turn to him and say, make it happen for us.
Thank you, Ronnie, so much. Thank you for giving us just a little taste of when someone says they might have issues or they could have issues, what that broad range of diagnoses could be. Thank you. Ariella.
So I'm excited because I get to introduce Riva Judas, and I've known her for a while through first my own volunteering and work as a mikvah guide and educator. And I've long been fascinated by the power of ritual in healing. And I know how important ritual can be around pregnancy, loss, and fertility. Judaism has so many rituals, and the absence of ritual for these losses can actually be so incredibly painful and invalidating. I know that so much of what inspired Riva to start Nechama Comfort, which offers tremendous support to families, clergy, pastoral caregivers who are all navigating pregnancy and infant loss. This is so much of what went into that void was just not just an absence. It was almost aggressive in its absence. So Riva, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the more meaningful rituals or markings of loss that you've seen people use, and really, why do you think it's important to mark and ritualize losses?
So thank you so much. I will just begin by saying tonight is actually a new ritual. We're all coming together. It is personally something that 34 years ago when our son died, and there was nothing there. And I knew then that we needed something to remember our son, and how are we going to share him in our lives to our future children, to our communities, especially in a time when we weren't allowed to talk about it. So just to let people know that a ritual and a ceremony, when it has to do with your fertility journey, with your infant pregnancy losses, it has a very significant role both in your grief journey, as well as putting your child to recognize that we all have these children, even if they live only in our hopes and dreams, to put them into our lives and to move through it. And it's a recognition both to ourselves, to both the men and the woman, the mother and the father, to our other children, to our family members, to our communities. It could be on a personal level or on a public level, but we're recognizing I have this child, and this child is part of our lives. And I really want to stress at this moment that it is the choices. We want everyone here tonight and everybody who goes through something like this to know that all the choices are available to them, and no one should be judging them, even if you've gone through the exact same situation. And the couple themselves may choose a different type of remembrance or ceremony for their child. To know that there is nothing in Jewish law that forbids us to accept the rituals and the memory boxes and the tools that hospitals offer us to help. Pictures taken, holding the baby, touching the baby. These are all so important for families to move through their grief and their loss, and to know they know they're not going to forget it, but to assure them, and to create their own memory boxes, to be able to have the choice to create a burial for their child at any stage, to know where the baby is buried, to know where their child is, to have the opportunity and the choice again to put up a headstone, a remembrance, to be able to come and visit or not. Sometimes just having that information is important to the couple. And allow them to share this with you. For the rest of the community and the families, reach out if you need help to these wonderful organizations. How are you going to be comfortable? If this family wants to share a photo of their baby or show you a lock of hair, that's okay. That's what they have. And also remember, they may not want to, and try not to be in their faces to ask about something. There are many, many choices. The Shabbat candle, a memorial candle, a prayer. And we really try to work with the couples individually to create this. A piece of jewelry. I have, Amy always remarks, I have a bracelet with all of my children's names on it, including my son Pesach and my 4 living children. And another piece of jewelry that represents the 6 children that I only live in my hopes and dreams. Another important symbol is the leaf in planting. We all know we plant a tree in Israel to remember a loved one. We all remember that. The leaf is the symbol of pregnancy and infant loss. If you go in to visit a hospital room and you see the leaf on the door, that tells us. Well, why is it the leaf? Why is it a plant? It represents the seasons and the cycles of nature. It gives us an example of death and of continuity of life. And we're so excited to be launching, it's been a vision of mine for 34 years almost, a virtual memorial garden.
Wow.
We're growing the Chama Comfort with the use of technology to welcome everyone to join in this garden.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful.
And we want, if you've kept silence all these years, or if you've talked about your child, to know that that we welcome you. We welcome you to remember. And I'm going to
Riva, can we include that in the resources that we're going to send out after the program?
Yes, you can include that
Wonderful.
in resources and
Okay.
website.
Awesome.
And I just want to share one thing that I've been waiting to do for many, many years, and show my son, Pesach. And this is a picture of ours that we keep in our family. And we share it with you. And to know that it's kept sometimes just with me and my husband. We have different views on it, but many times we take it out too. So we thank you for creating this new ritual for families who are going through this journey.
Riva, you're beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for sharing Pesach with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I remember seeing Pesach's picture when I worked with you at Nakama Comfort, and it's so special that you have that. It's such an incredible memory. Incredible.
Amy, before your next question, I wanted to make sure to just follow up with Riva's amazing resources that she shared, and just mention two of our other sponsors, Mayim Chaim and the Eden Center in Jerusalem. They are both ritually attuned organizations, Mayim Chaim Mikveh and Education Center located in Boston, and the Eden Center in Jerusalem, both of which do a tremendous job raising communal sensitivity around loss and offering the mikveh, the ritual bath, as a healing tool. Mayim Chaim has many writings and intentions, kavanot, related to fertility and pregnancy loss, conception and birth. All of them are available to make this ritual more meaningful or more comforting. And it's a tool that can be used both personally and by clergy and communal members as something to offer. And the Eden Center, who is also tonight, thanks to a generous donor, they're offering their Birkat Emunah, their blessings of faith, a collection of prayers and reflections that can support the mikveh experience for women struggling with infertility, pregnancy loss, or stillbirth. And they are offering this resource for free to anyone who's participating in the summit. You can find a link in the chat, and you'll also find it in our follow-up materials. We'll also link to Mayim Chaim's amazing resources that are all available too.
Yes, they are both incredible resources.
And I get to introduce Nishmat Yoatzot program, one of our sponsors tonight, who want to share a little bit about the communal resources that they offer.
A woman called me soon after she got married. She said, I know I'm only 22 and I'm not supposed to worry about my fertility, but I've been living in my body for a while and I know something's not quite right. She was correct. Their path toward parenthood would not be simple. All kinds of issues that were both hormonal and structural would come up, both for her and for him. And with each question that came up on the medical side, there were many different halachic questions that needed to be addressed at each stage. Time and again, she would say to me, I am so grateful to have a woman with whom I can consult on these complex questions. Thank God this couple is now blessed with twins, a boy and a girl, and I'm incredibly grateful that I was able to be there for their process toward becoming parents. Nishmat Yoatzot Halacha fertility counselors are here to support you on your fertility journey.
רגישות ובקיאות הלכתית, knowledge, מקצועיות, הלכה, זוגיות, guidance. יועצות ההלכה של נשמת, איתך להלכה ולמעשה.
And I want to also mention that Nishmat's fertility counselors are not only available in Israel, but they're also available in the United States, which was actually something that I just learned when we were putting together this program. So they have resources, they have fertility counselors who are here in America to be able to help all of you. So they are another really wonderful resource for you to reach out to and will be included in our resource packet. Now, I have the distinct pleasure of interviewing someone who I've known actually for years, Chani Levertov. It's kind of ironic that we're here right now talking about some of our like hush-hush conversations that you and I have had like over the years, and now we're doing it in front of like a gazillion people. But Chani Levertov, she is my dear friend, and she is the founder of Fruitful, which started as a peer support resource for friends and community members in the Phoenix area in Arizona. And she's grown the organization together with her dedicated team to service over 90 individuals navigating their own infertility journey. So Chani, look, I know this is a personal question for you because of your own struggles with infertility. So I know it might be hard for you to answer, but try, do your best. How would you suggest someone tell their struggling friend that they're pregnant, or include them in their child's birthday or bris, their circumcision ceremony, bar mitzvah? How can you share your joy while still acknowledging someone else's struggle?
Hard one.
I know,
First of all,
sorry.
thank you for this opportunity. I'm so humbled to be a part of this. It's really incredible. So back to the question. I'll start off by saying that everybody is so very different, but I really believe that you can't go wrong with starting the conversation in a text or an email. And that way you can leave the space for your loved one or friend to digest the news and react privately on their terms. And phone calls to share your good news can often catch them off guard and make it harder for them to react the way they truly, truly want to. So, back to the text, it would be very sensitive and appropriate to start off by letting them know how much you think about them and you care for them. And all that being said, you absolutely want to share your joy with them. And believe me, as someone who struggles with infertility, I always appreciate these heartfelt messages from close friends and family. And yes, there is absolutely room in my heart to be joyous for them, as well as feeling my sad feelings from my struggle. There's always room for both. And as for including your friends in your joyous occasions, the ultimate comfort for your friends struggling is to give them the choice of whether or not they want to participate. Again, this is so different for everybody. Sometimes it's way too painful and for them to participate, while for others, it brings them joy and hope. And because it's so personal, it's so, so, so important to make them feel okay with whatever they decide. Give them that space and make them feel like you're okay with them not showing up to your shower or to your circumcision, and help them navigate those feelings and not have the guilt associated with that. And finding a balance in sharing your joys while your friend is struggling may seem difficult. However, with the right sensitivities and lack of secrecy to preempt the conversation can go such a long way.
Yeah, I think a lot of this circles back to what Idit was saying before. Like, it really depends on the relationship. It depends on how you feel comfortable talking about it, whether it's by text, whether it's by email, whether it's in person. There are, so many of these questions are circular, but they're meant to bring out different points. And you did a masterful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Molly Hess, thank you for being here tonight representing the PRIA Fund. I'm really excited actually to hear your particular question answered, because it's about the finances behind fertility, which is something that A, we don't talk about nearly enough. B, I think that the larger community is mostly unaware of the magnitude of this piece of fertility. And C, I think that the Jewish community personally, in my opinion, needs to show up more and offer more support in this area. If we value families, we literally should be putting our money where our mouth is. We know that creating a family can be exorbitantly and sometimes prohibitively expensive. How are some organizations and community institutions addressing this right now? What more can be done? How can local communities be more sensitive to these financial stressors? And how can we do a better job communicating how significant this stressor is as an additional layer to those who are walking through their fertility experience?
Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, when it comes to, you're right, the cost is prohibitive. It is, I think someone in this group said at one point, many of us are parents because we can afford it. And that struck such a chord with me. Any route you take to building a family is going to cost a lot of money. And you're right, we have what communities are doing. So I'm like a little flustered. I just feel so honored to be here. You know, what some communities are doing, like what the PRIA Fund is, and in our community here in Kansas City, it's really from the ground up. It's a bunch of community members who have come together to put money where their mouth is, to say that fertility is important, that family building is important, that, you know, that's really where we want to start driving our community, right? Like we have, for those of you who might have little kids, there's PJ Library, there's scholarship for camp, there's scholarship for Hebrew school, there's scholarship for day school, there's scholarship for everything, but rarely do we find scholarship for fertility. And even what we can give, those of us who do have the ability, who run programs that have financial assistance, what we can give is really a drop in the bucket of the cost. You know, I don't know if, like, I mean, the numbers are exponential, right? So in Kansas City, you know, IVF on average, before you get to all the things, is over $13,000, right? That's just like baseline. And that's like, here in Kansas City, like that's more than my annual mortgage. Like that's insane to me that it could cost more to bring a child into this world than it can to pay for your house for a year. And I think the thing that I've learned as I've come into this work that's really struck me is that no matter where you live, like cost of living is different everywhere, but the cost of infertility stays the same. It doesn't change. And so I think what smaller communities can do, or what communities can do, is start building these smaller funds and, you know, give $100 here, $1,000 there, whatever you can do. As for local communities being more sensitive to this, you know, it's not making those comments of just go on vacation and relax. You know, it's like, well, I would go on vacation, but I can't afford vacation. Or, you know, just being more aware of kind of the language you're using and how you're addressing the financial side of things. And how can we better communicate the stress? I mean, money is stressful, period. So I think it's understanding that, that aspect of it, that even a couple who looks like from the outside that they're thriving financially, maybe both partners have, you know, well-paying jobs and they have insurance through work and all of these things. Insurance in the majority of the United States does not cover these treatments, and or adoption fees or surrogacy fees or anything. So I think it goes along with what everyone else is saying, right? Like even if something appears to be okay on the outside, this couple appears to be, or even individuals, sorry, I shouldn't just say couples, but individuals and couples appear to be doing well on the outside, they might be spending more annually on their fertility journey than on anything else. And, you know, my program runs through JFS. Sometimes we see those couples come in for other services that, you know, our organization offers, because so much of their funding is going towards towards building their family. And to me, that's the hardest part, to see that we have resources once your family is here, but the process of building the family is sort of resources.
You're so right. And this was so kudos to you, because we gave you, I think, isn't it true that money is the hardest topic for all of us to actually talk about in public? So not only are you tackling fertility, but you're also talking money too. So bravo,
Politics,
Molly.
Ariella,
I was gonna say,
politics.
you want me to hop on the
No,
politics train? I can get on my insurance soapbox.
You're amazing. And I'll just throw in there also as food for thought that even preserving fertility can be extremely costly. And we're not talking about the singles community out there that is increasingly approaching these conversations about their increasing age and just needing to have this as part of the conversation too, the finances on that end as well. We get to actually hear from one of our sponsors now, Extend Fertility.
I'm Batsheva Maslow. I'm a reproductive endocrinologist at Extend Fertility and Premium Health Centers in New York City. As physicians, we have a very particular role to play in the fertility journey. An event like this honors the fact that there is so much more to this journey than just medications and ultrasounds and procedures. I've had the pleasure of working with so many of the organizations represented here today. I'm constantly wowed by their dedication to supporting, encouraging, and empowering my patients through their struggles. We as a community are so fortunate to live in an era where we not only have access to incredible reproductive technologies, but also an army of helpers at the ready to stand with us together. No one needs to go through this alone. As professionals in the fertility world, we are all called upon to be present with each and every one of you in your moments of distress, to struggle and persevere with you through this journey. And hopefully one day we will have the honor of sharing with you in your celebrations.
Thank you, Dr. Maslow. I'll also put a plug in for the fact that Dr. Maslow is not only part of Extend Fertility because she's a reproductive endocrinologist, but she is one of the few individuals in the United States that also does egg freezing. So if anyone is considering doing egg freezing, she always offers a free consultation. So I highly suggest that you reach out to her. It is my distinct pleasure now to speak with Dahlia Davis from Uprooted. Dahlia, I remember all those years ago when we met, I think it was with Becca and Naomi, when we were all at this UJA conference, and we were, I just deeply admired the work of Uprooted. And I'm just so glad that you could come be here today and represent all of them so beautifully. So you are one of the co-founders, and Uprooted is a Jewish response to fertility journeys, and you serve as the arts and education director. You're passionate about helping people grow their families and find support in the Jewish community. So your question is, how can we, as supporters, friends of those struggling, individuals, and community leaders, how can we make changes to our gatherings, to our holidays, sensitive times of year that make people feel more supported and not isolated, unseen, and heard? How can we make it be better, more inclusive? And do you think that we can do a better job as community leaders, as community founders, to publicly sensitize the fact that infertility and loss is a big deal and we need just to do better? Dahlia.
Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate this question because this is exactly why I came to do this work. After finding it very challenging to experience a fertility journey while enmeshed in the Jewish community, both my co-founder Becca and I really wanted to help create a community that was more sensitive and more inclusive. And we've seen incredible growth within the community, even just over the past few years. But there's always more work to be done. And we can always be more sensitive and more compassionate and more empathic and more open. And so I believe the first step is really for everyone, both loved ones and communal leaders, to do exactly what you're doing right now, to strive to learn more about the various ways in which fertility journeys can impact people's lives. The more we understand about what the fertility journey is like for people, how it impacts them physically, emotionally, socially, and spiritually, the more we can begin to craft our spaces, our programming, and our language in a way that is deeply sensitive and compassionate. So we've already begun just by being here, listening and learning together. After we gain that deeper understanding, the next step, in my opinion, is really to ask deep reflective questions and then to be open to creating change. I feel like these questions really revolve around three particular spheres. The first sphere is that of space. A woman shared with me once that she was on her way to a pregnancy loss group at her local JCC, and as she entered the door, the first thing she saw was a wall of strollers. She turned around and left and never went to that pregnancy loss group. What do our spaces look like? Are they inclusive? If we took a walk through our spaces and thought, what is it like for somebody who is struggling to grow their family to enter? What is it like for them to walk around? What triggers might there be in the environment that we are presenting to them? We can begin to think about what it's like for them, and we can begin to make changes. Perhaps we want to create a space within our communal spaces for people to sit and reflect and have privacy if they're having a difficult moment. Perhaps you want to look at the pictures on the wall. Are all the pictures ones of families with children? How can we create communal spaces that are more inclusive and welcoming? The second sphere is to really consider what our rituals and communal events are like, whether they're social events, ritual, spiritual events, or just things that happen within our own families. Do we celebrate all of our life milestones with the same enthusiasm that we do for births? We can take a moment to analyze our own personal communal and ritual spaces and think, what would it be like for someone struggling to grow their family to be in that space and to witness that ritual? And then we can consider how we can create spaces for these people to have room to connect with one another and to particularly delve into their experience, and also opportunities for them to just be one of the many, and for their experience not to define them, and for them to unite the community at large. And the third sphere, which is possibly the most universally relevant, is that of language. We've already heard from a few other people who've referenced that people say the darndest things when people are going through fertility journeys. All right, how many people on the screen have been asked if they're pregnant? And that's hard for people, whether they're going through a fertility journey or not. Nobody wants to be asked that question, and yet almost everybody is. So there are these simple points of language. And then there are the things that are seemingly innocuous and always well-meaning. How many kids do you have? How do we begin to get to know each other without asking these biographical details that can evoke pain, but rather ask more open and deeper questions of one another? What inspires you? What are you busy with these days? We don't need to know the tally marks of how many years you've been married or if you are married and what your personal life looks like. Let's get to know each other's souls before we get to know each other's biographical details. Language is both an opportunity and a practice to practice sensitivity, and it can also be a platform for us to create inclusion. If we can speak openly about families that look different and that have been created in a variety of different ways. But ultimately, listening is by far the best form of speech when you're looking to support someone on this journey. Listening with openness and listening without judgment and listening without the need to offer advice or to make the response about something that you learned, that you know, or that you believe. To just listen. So
Beautiful.
continue together to listen, learn, ask questions, be open to making changes, and may those struggling to grow their families feel held, heard, and included and communally embraced by everyone here tonight. Thank you.
Beautiful. Dahlia, that was absolutely, crafted beautifully, intricately, and really touched on so many different areas of people's lives that are really, truly important. Thank you. You play an integral part here, and we're so lucky to have you. We are now going to move into the second part of our program. We recognize we are running late because all Jewish programs run late.
All right, Amy, this is Karen from Hadassah. I think
Yes.
we were going to
Yes.
go before the breakouts.
Yes, absolutely. I was just about to introduce you, Karen. So I'm so glad that you're on the screen. Everyone, we are running late, and I hope we have still another about a half an hour of richness. So please stay. Karen from Hadassah. So Hadassah is one of our platinum sponsors, and we are incredibly grateful for them for giving us this opportunity to be able to help talk about this kind of work to the Jewish community at large. And we've also brought Karen here tonight so she can talk to you more about the work that Hadassah is doing specifically in regard to fertility. So Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Pakin-Baral, and I'm the Director of Government Relations at Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America. As many of you know, women's health policy is a cornerstone of Hadassah's mission, and infertility has really become a key focus for our advocacy agenda. In 2019, we adopted a policy statement on infertility, and last year we launched Reconceiving Infertility, a national campaign to educate, support men and women facing infertility and their family members and friends. We are taking new steps every day to end the stigmas, raise awareness, and support efforts that break down barriers to diagnose treatment. We are working to inspire conversations and advocacy. Efforts are already underway for Hadassah's 300,000 members to make a concerted effort to reach policymakers both at the federal and state level and urge them to expand access to infertility diagnosis and treatment. Hadassah will be advocating for Congress to sit up and take notice that infertility is a major priority for our organization and the American people. We're going to push for legislation that will win new friends and allies and set the stage for serious action. Hadassah is committed to lowering the barriers to diagnosis and treatment. Our goal is to help bring everyone together to speak with one voice, to organize and advocate our members, our friends and families, and our communities so elected officials understand that infertility is not an issue they can ignore. It's too big, too prevalent, and too harmful to the American people who cannot continue with the status quo. But we cannot do this alone. Hadassah is the Hebrew name for Esther, and we are about to celebrate the holiday of Purim. And I want to draw an analogy that speaks to who Hadassah women are. On Purim, we turn the grogger at the bottom to make it move, unlike on Hanukkah when we turn the dreidel from the top up. Hadassah is named after Queen Esther and is a grassroots advocacy organization where we influence change from the bottom up. This is not an easy task, and it's going to take an army to make a difference. It's going to teach each and every one of us working together at each level of government to enact change. We must be the champions who break down the barriers and give a voice to those who are struggling in science. That's where Hadassah fits in. That's our role. And we're ready to advocate before members of Congress on both sides of the aisle in ways that are strategically sound and effective in winning new allies and moving closer to the day that tackling the policy challenges on infertility is a win for all our elected officials, just as we've done in other policy arenas. Before I close, I want to invite you to get involved with our Reconceiving Infertility initiative at hadassah.org/infertility, as well as our advocacy agenda. If you are not a Hadassah member, please become one. I'm really excited about the work Hadassah is doing in this space, and we look forward to continuing our partnership so we can make change happen. Thank you so much for having me tonight, and I look forward to working with all of you.
And we very much look forward to working with you. That was absolutely incredible. The work that you are doing for the American people, this groundbreaking work for advocacy for the individuals who are struggling with fertility, it is absolutely awe-inspiring. I was lucky to sit in on a little bit of a meeting last week, and I was blown away by what was going on around the table. I look forward to seeing much, much more from Hadassah. So all of us really should be involved.
Thank you.
Ariella.
Amen to that. Now we get to have a little bit more of an intimate conversation with our speakers. We're going to move into breakout rooms together.
I want to take a moment just to share what we're going to do now, which is we're going to invite our speakers a number of them here today to share a little bit more personally the response to this question, which is, if someone is just starting out on this journey, what is one piece of advice or wisdom, or what I like to say, what kind of a heart message would you like to impart? Or what do you wish someone had shared with you at the time when you really needed it? And I want to start with Bronnie, and I apologize that I do have to keep it to about 2 minutes for each of you, which is way too short, and I apologize. But I'd love to hear from you, Bronnie, and then we'll move on to Ellie Moore. Is Bronnie here?
I loved your opening so much.
Thank you.
I love taking that moment of self-care, of breathing in. I just want to say, don't do this journey alone. Reach out to someone who's walked this journey. Let them hold you. I always felt the biggest thing that I had was that for me, my journey wasn't lost. I was able to say, don't do that. Do that. Don't care about your mother-in-law. Do care about your husband. Embrace your marriage. Don't let infertility define you. You have blonde hair. You have blue eyes. You're a therapist. You're a wife. And by the way, you don't have children. We teach the world how to treat us. It's not who you are. It's just something you're living. So sorry. I also feel the stress of infertility is so great. It's enough. Don't add more stresses. Become very, very, not selfish, protective of the stresses you are not going to do. For who they are and what they accomplished and how they are living this very difficult journey by themselves. And I'll just say that if you do cry because you're hormonal, I feel that the biggest prayer that you can do to God is when you're crying. When you're sad, turn that into a prayer. Just know that you're so cared for and loved.
Oh, thank you, Bronnie, so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I noticed a couple of times you did this, really wanting to really give the comfort, which is so essential. And I also just want to say, I just want to really acknowledge that whether it's a couple or an individual, heterosexual, homosexual, whatever gender you are, I just think it's important to really acknowledge and make space for everybody, right? And as you were saying, honor them and what they're going through.
It's their journey.
That's right. That's right. Ellie Moore,
Yes.
we would love to hear from you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so everyone that's tuning in tonight that is going through a fertility journey, you're going through a hard time. And I don't really know what you're going through because no one really knows what you're going through other than yourself. It doesn't matter what anyone else has been through. We have no idea what you're going through. But there's one thing that I do know. I know that I'm here for you. I know that you are not alone. Tonight, there are 11 organizations coming together. That's proof that you are not alone. There were over 1,500 people who signed up to this summit. That is proof that you are not alone. And that is my message. You are not alone. And there are so many people who ask me, you're a pool volunteer. How can we support our community members? What can we do to show them that we care? And this is what I tell all of you that are tuning in tonight because you want to be a support. I tell you, don't give advice. Certainly don't give medical advice. Certainly if you're not a doctor. Don't give your therapist numbers. That PUA could do. That these 11 organizations could do for you. The professionals, let them handle that. You know what you could do for your community members? You could show them that you care. Show them They're not alone. And there are two women here tonight that are tuning in amongst all the women tuning in. I'm not going to mention their names, but they are here. And a year ago, they weren't so close. One of them was going through a fertility journey, and one of them was a member in her community. They were friendly, but not close. 8 months ago, the woman who was going through her fertility journey had a miscarriage. And the other woman in her community was heartbroken. She wanted to show that she cares. So she bought her a gift certificate for a massage. She built her a little care package with a note. 6 months later, which is 2 months ago, she received a letter that said, "You saw me when no one else did. Your little gesture that you think is a little gesture was everything to me, because it didn't only make me feel, it made me know that I'm not alone." There were over 1,500 people who registered for this summit. If you came here tonight, you're either going through your fertility journey, you're either here to support someone going through their fertility journey, or both. And if there's one takeaway from this evening, it's that you are not alone.
Ellie Moore, that's so beautiful. Thank you. And each time you said it, I got goosebumps, because I really felt it from your heart. And all these organizations are showing up for that reason. And Amy and Ariella did this because they want exactly that, for people to feel seen and heard and not alone. It's really beautiful. Thank you.
Karen, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second.
Yeah.
Where the other group is running different timing than us. So I want to make sure that everybody has time to speak. So let's give everybody here like a minute and a half, the ones who haven't spoken yet. Okay.
Sounds great. Okay, thank you. Connie.
Yes, hi. I'm basically going to echo what Bronnie and Elmore said so beautifully. Yeah, I would want somebody who's going through this to know that you are not alone. That is the hot topic tonight. And there's so many resources out there. And it's scary to reach out. It is. I know personally, it's scary to make that leap. But once you do, you will feel so supported. And there's just, you need emotional support while you're going through this. You need financial support, obviously. You need just like a sisterhood or a brotherhood or an individualhood of support. And there's so many amazing organizations out there, and so much going on. And I hope that, whoever is on tonight going through this can just see what, how much is surrounding us, and hopefully you can tap into it and be of help.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you so much. Atara.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I really do echo all of the really powerful statements made by everyone who spoke already. And I want to just add one thing. As a fertility counselor, specifically for Jewish law, I want to share the message tonight that not only are you not alone, but Jewish law is on your side. That there's a lot of choreography that has to happen. There's a lot of how does Jewish law fit in with what you're going through in your fertility journey, but you are not alone. And Jewish law, if we can help you navigate that journey and make sure that if that is what you want to do, you are keeping the Jewish law that is relevant, but really, truly, Jewish law and God are on your side.
That's lovely. And thank you for that important piece. Molly.
Yeah, I would say find the helpers. Look around, find the helpers, find the people in your community, find the people not in your community. Some feedback I've gotten a lot recently is it was easier to go outside of the Jewish community for anonymity purposes. And if that's what you need, that's what you need. So recognize the help that you need and look for the helpers. And just echoing again, you are not alone. And don't feel like you have to justify your loss or your infertility by saying like, oh, it's normal to be part of a statistic. Know that you don't have to justify it, that your pain is real, and that is okay to not feel normal, and to look for the people who support that.
Find your helpers. Amazing. Amazing. And feel your feelings. Riva.
I'm speaking to all the families who have experienced early miscarriages, infant loss, the stillbirth, and of course you're not alone. But to remember that you're not defined by your grief, that you're who you are, and that you're individuals, that you and your partner are on this journey, and we recognize the extended family, the grandparents, the siblings, your children, your future children, your community, and that you have to share how you feel, and you have the choices. You have the choices to reach out to people. There is no stigma. You've done nothing wrong, and you are now part of a club that we always say you didn't want to join, but you're a lifetime member. So we're here to support you forever, and to acknowledge your losses, and to acknowledge also your families. And remember that, we don't walk around wearing black. We're who we are, and be true to yourselves.
Riva, thank you so much. And thank you everyone, especially the presenters, for sharing those words that were so powerful. And I appreciate all of you just for being here tonight. It takes courage to come to something like this. And I want to just again thank Amy and Ariella for putting this together. And the last thing I'll say is I hope in moments of pain, despair, fear, grief, you can remember these moments of feeling that group hug, that comfort, that warmth. Because tonight I think we did the miraculous thing of undoing aloneness, which is something we can all feel in these spaces and places. So please remember this beautiful group hug, and remember what so many people said tonight, you're not alone.
Sometimes there's a point where you like lift that head up out of the sand and you go, oh, it's time for me to walk into that reproductive endocrinologist's office. Like it's just time. And so when the head comes out of the sand or the diagnosis is made, what do you wish that person understood? What do you wish that person understood about what is ahead of them? I'm going to start with Gila. What is the one thing, as somebody begins, either because of happenstance that they have not yet conceived a child, or because they actually finally got a diagnosis, what's the one thing you wish they understood about what's ahead of them?
I guess a little pivot from the what's ahead of them, but more what support is ahead of them. Is that in order to get support, you need to ask for support, and that no one can read your mind and no one knows what you're going through. Asking for support is not an all or nothing. It doesn't mean that your person that you choose or people that you choose to lean into for support need to know every detail from your first appointment until current status of cycling what you're going through, but rather just a simple, I'm struggling right now and I need you to be there for me. I need you to do X, Y, and Z for me. Because if you don't ask for it, people won't know to give it, especially since we are teaching people not to make assumptions. And so the more we learn not to make assumptions, the less hopefully people will assume. So I think the one piece of advice I wish someone had shared with me is that I won't get the support and we won't get the support unless we know to ask for it.
And I think that, if I can twist it one more way, is also get the support that you need, right? Make sure you get the support. Everybody just mind your mute button. If you don't mind, take your text, make sure you're muted. That the support is a critical piece of this experience, that you might not think you need the support, but when you finally access it, there's a certain breath of fresh air, of reason, of like wisdom, of shared space that you didn't even know you were missing until you're sitting in that space together. So thank you so much. Malki Kanafayan, Hello, Malky.
So what I wish people understood a lot about loss is that it's, in addition to loss, is the grief that comes along with it, that encompasses the loss and the process as you're moving forward. We have certain imaginations of what grief is supposed to look like, but it's not going to be as you expected. It's going to be very, very different than the map you gave yourself or the map that other people gave you. And whatever you imagined and any script that you write, every single person is different. And it's not linear. There's ups and downs. It doesn't get better, 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 better. And then all of a sudden it's a trip of many, many ups and downs, and recognizing that there's no timeline. It's going to take time, and give yourself that time and space to understand that this whole process is really part of it. There's no way to go out. You need to go through it, but it's part of the process of taking a step forward. Experiencing a loss is very, very lonely. And by giving yourself the permission to be sad, permission to be happy, permission to hold the space, permission to feel the guilt, permission to embrace and honor the child that you just lost. And by giving yourself that permission, that space and the time to do exactly what you need to do, giving yourself and honoring that exactly what you need you will do to love and connect and honor that child that you just lost is so, so, so important. Switch over to, if this will be a friend and her friend is just starting the beginning of the journey, the power of companioning, of being there with them, of being non-judgmental, not offering advice, not offering your thoughts, just not being fearful of sitting there with your friend and giving her the space. The biggest space that you can hold here is the biggest gift that you can offer.
Thank you, Malky.
Finish?
Go ahead. You know, you're great. Go ahead. One more last line.
One more last thought is
one last line.
One last line. When I get this question of what should I do, what should I say, just be there and hold her hand because you really care, and that's what she really needs.
Thank you. I will just again one more add-on, and don't hesitate to get the support. If this is your story, be in that space with another human being who has walked this walk before, because you will learn from the wisdom of others that are here with you.
Also support yourself while you're doing all this advocating. So again, I'm a huge fan of therapy, one-on-one counseling, support groups. It's so important because, again, sometimes you know what you need, sometimes you don't, but please don't hesitate to push your doctor, your family, your friends to figure out, what your best option for treatment and for your mental health can be.
I'd like to add to that just one kind of qualifier on that idea of mental health. It is critical that you find a counselor who's actually trained in fertility. There are many people that say, oh, I deal with fertility all the time. Oh yeah, I do that. Let me just check it on the psychology stage. You need to be looking as a baseline, somebody who's done American Society of Reproductive Medicine training, ASRM, bottom line, 18 hours, not just an affiliate of it, but actually trained. If they've done Covington, if they've done Postpartum Support International, that's a good also kind of foundational, but it's not in fertility. There are reproductive psychologists, there are reproductive therapists. Make sure your person is well trained. You deserve that. You deserve an expert. You go to reproductive endocrinologist, you go to a reproductive psychologist. And if needed, you go to reproductive psychiatrist as well. Thank you so much for those words. Let me move over to Rabbi Edith. Go ahead, your turn. Wait, unmute. Hi, Ray.
Thank you for asking. Thank you for the unmute. Never want to be that one. It's okay. I own it. So I would say the most important piece of advice I got early on, and it just expanded and grew. And with the hundreds of people that I've spoken to, it comes up almost every time. And that is to know your boundaries and consider what your endpoint is. So by boundaries, I mean, it could be how much time you think you're willing to spend, how much money you want to spend, what's the amount of emotional energy you want to put into this, how many procedures you want to go through, what different attempts you might take, whatever it may be for your boundaries. And your endpoint is something like, is it to try enough to reach one of those boundaries or whatever it will be? Is it to say something specific, like I want to be a biological parent, or we're going to try 2 IVFs? Or is it more general, like I want to become a parent, or I want to have a parental role in my life? Whatever that may be, the analogy I draw to help understand this is a cell, the basic unit of life, and it only exists because it has walls. Without those walls, life can't exist. If the walls are solid or rigid, life cannot exist. If there are no walls, life doesn't exist. So in this analogy, what's inside that cell is your life. And that's your endpoint that you're trying to reach to. What is your life? And these walls are your personal boundaries. So the thing about boundaries is they're important is they need to be porous. You can't sustain life unless these things come in and out. So in the fertility experiences, they help you make your decisions. What you're going to do is what you let in, and what you're not going to do is what goes out. And you need to ask yourself, when is a boundary reached? Is it movable? You can only know that if you've set them. So for example, if you've set a boundary of $20,000, but a procedure is 25, you need to consciously revisit what is the boundary, what's the cost benefit of moving it or ignoring it or keeping it. We said we're going to work on this 6 months. Well, but it's a few months, it's COVID, whatnot. Are you going to pass it or stay in? Same thing with your emotional levels. You need to consciously revisit what are your boundaries, what's going to come in and out. If they get inundated or blurry with things, that's a good time to say, not now. Maybe you need to take a pause, whether it's a day, a week, or a month, or whatever, because you need to rebuild them and know what they are. And when we experience loss, that also can be a breaking of those boundaries, whether it's the loss of a cycle, the loss of a pregnancy, the loss of ourself. We constantly have a loss of control. Whenever our pain has grown and the hope is too low, it's a time to revisit the boundaries because they actually strengthen us. That's how we have life. So you can only grow and change if you constantly have these boundaries. They're not fixed, and they have to form you and they can sustain you. But the boundaries are not the end point. It's important to remember that they're serving the purpose of that life inside, of keeping your meaningful life. So if it's, I've tried enough when you've said you had a meaningful life, or I'm going to redirect my energy to other ways, or times to consider to other different parental roles, either way, that's how you can have life and you can grow. So I would say it's knowing your boundaries and your endpoint so you can sustain a meaningful life during and after the infertility experience, regardless.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those words. It's really about, trying to create a new identity sometimes, or the identity of what it means to be living in the struggle, during the struggle, and also after the struggle. What does that look like, and what does that feel like? I would like to just comment before I pass this over. Dahlia, are you here somewhere hiding? Okay, so if you could just unmute while I have, oh, there you are. Hello. There's a lot of, I just want to acknowledge everybody who is in the chat and who is sharing so much very difficult feelings and thoughts that are coming up for this day. Please reach out to any of the institutions that are published here. You're welcome to reach out to Yeshtikva. We do a lot of referral. You can reach out to Amy. But I also have lists and lists of therapists who are qualified. If you're sitting on here and you're finding this space particularly painful and you don't have good support and you don't have somebody to turn to, please reach out to us so we can connect you with an expert who can be there more fully together with you and create the support that you personally need. Dahlia, why don't you take it away? And with that, we'll probably be wrapping up. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm sorry, I had a tech issue, so I didn't get to hear everything everyone else said. So stop me if I'm being repetitive. Sorry about that. So just kind of thinking about one piece of advice I would say is to kind of really be prepared to allow yourself to have kind of like two pocketfuls of very, very different things going on at the same time, right? It's almost like your right pocket might be full of mourning and your left pocket might be full of triumph. And you need to find space for both. So you have to realize that there are going to be moments where you're going to feel, or where you might possibly feel, despair, loss, sadness, jealousy, any of the emotions that might be emotions that you would consider yourself struggling with, as opposed to enjoying. And those moments where you're struggling, that's okay. And there needs to be space for you to do that, whether that's with another person or alone, whether that's through meditation, through prayer, through yoga, through whatever it is that helps you express and make space for and validate those emotions. That's one pocket. And that's sometimes the pocket people have an easier time going to, depending on who you are. But then there also needs to be the other pocket. And that's the pocket where you acknowledge all that you have accomplished and all that you have triumphed through and endured during this journey. This is such a hard journey, and you are probably going to do things that you never thought you could possibly do. And whether or not it leads to a pregnancy or a baby, you accomplished something, you triumphed, you endured, and you showed your commitment and your love for this child that is not yet there. And that is something to acknowledge also, and to notice what an incredible, strong, powerful person you are, even in the moments where you don't necessarily feel that, because this journey can lead to feelings that are contrary to that quite often. So really kind of being able to figure out, what do I need right now? Is now a moment where I need to go into my right pocket and allow myself to cry and feel those deep feelings? Or is now a moment where I've done a lot of the right pocket and I need to go into the left pocket and really think about what I've accomplished, what an incredible person I am, how strong I am, and figure out a way to celebrate myself as I continue to go through carrying both pockets at the same time.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sally. I appreciate everything that has been brought here today. We have about a minute or so left. I think that this, a number of the people on the call have expressed this idea. Is there anybody else I'm missing, by the way, Ariella? Oh, I got it covered. Okay, good. So, you know what? A lot of us have used the term creating space, right? And some of you might be like, I have no idea what she's talking about, right? I like to use the word pockets, right? Creating space has multiple meanings when it's used in this dynamic. And so I just want to kind of bring up that idea. Creating space can be held in communal experiences. Creating space can be private experiences where I might say, I need to go to my closet and hold space in my closet so that nobody can talk to me and nobody can bother me. It can also be something where creating space is about honoring the experience of the pain of others in the room. It's quiet, it can be mindful, it's present, it's important. And so I think that that's really what has been created in this breakout room, and of course in the conference and the summit this evening. You are going to be rejoined for one last Ariella, you got 39 seconds. Go, go,
I'm
go.
going to talk fast. I'm putting it
There
in
you
the
go.
chat right now. We're going to ask everybody to take 2 seconds and follow the link. It's menti.com, and there's a specific link there. And you're going to be asked to share anonymously, completely anonymously, in 1 to 2 words, how has this gathering made you feel? And we're going to all come back together in the mainframe. So if you can just click on that link, we'll push you out on our own from the breakout room and bring you back into the mainframe, but go click on the link menti.com. I put it in the chat. And go click on it before it disappears. I'm going to post it 100 times. Just a reminder to everybody to stick themselves on mute if they can as you come back in.
I just wanted to, for my group, because we kind of got a little bit caught up in what we were doing, and we had such a beautiful conversation. What we are doing right now, we're asking everybody as we close, we are asking you, we just put this notification in the chat. There's this Menti question of, in 1 to 2 words, tell us, how has this gathering made you feel? And you will start to see this. Vadim, can we get this to be full screen? Can people see what we're doing? And basically what a Menti does is that the more a word is referenced, the more someone says they feel supported, then that word is larger. And the more the fewer number of times that somebody says, let me see if I can read them.
No, you guys are awesome. And I see all those folks who didn't get the Menti link, and you're putting it in the chat. Thank you for all of these amazing words. And I love it. Supported and connected, exhausted, not alone,
and hopeful,
inspired,
and informed, and validated.
These are amazing. You guys are amazing. You guys are just amazing. I just want to hang out here forever. I know we can't.
Look,
I know we really can't.
Look, this is what we intended to do. We intended to only do this in 90 minutes. Okay, we're not at 90 minutes. We're a little bit over 90 minutes, but we don't see this as an end. We see this very much as a beginning. We know that community at large is finally starting to talk about these issues. You have all come here tonight to feel supported or to learn how to better care for someone in your life. And so we can't possibly solve all of these problems now, but as a result of this program and with the extensive resource list that we're sending you, you will be better armed to envelope people with this giant warm hug instead of shunning them or making them feel other. Because we as a community, we can do better when we work together. Ariella?
I just want to say thank you. I just want to say thank you to everybody who is here, everybody who spoke, who does this amazing work. I want to say thank you to the sponsors who step up and help make a night like this possible. I want to thank Amy from the bottom of my heart for being a visionary and saying there is nothing that is going to stop me from bringing these people together. And I want to thank each one of you. I can't see all of your faces, but I feel each one of you. And I just want to say thank you for showing up so incredibly beautifully. And I just want to put out a personal plea that this not be the last time that our paths cross. I would love to welcome anyone who identifies as a Jewish woman in any way to come hang out with us at Sviva. We just love to have conversations like these and just be together as real as we come. And just thank Amy again.
And this program would not, we're now just going to do a love fest for 5 seconds. This program would not have come together. This, yes, it percolated with an idea in my head, but it really bloomed into fruition because of my partnership with Ariella and Sviva. And I'm so grateful. Everything that you see here was a real partnership between the two of us. And this program could not have been done with one person. And really, it could not have been done without all of the incredible organizations who also saw the vision of what this could be. They looked beyond geography. They looked beyond what hashkafa, where they fell specifically within the Jewish framework. They looked beyond whether they only dealt with infertility or only dealt with loss or only dealt with the finances or only dealt with support. And they came together because they wanted to support you and give you the tools to be able to support your friends, your loved ones, and your community members. So we have to thank them. And we're just so grateful for all of them. Please, you will get that resource package. Reach out to them, reach out to us. There's a specific email, summit@iwassupposetohaveababy.org, that you can reach out about specific summit questions. Which organization is the best for me? Where do you think we should go if we're thinking about this? Who deals with this kind of issue? I saw so many of these pieces that were coming through on the chat that we didn't have the time to answer here. So please send us those messages. We will get to them over the course of the week. I can't promise tomorrow because I know there's going to be an avalanche of messages, but we will get to you because this is too important. This is just the beginning of these kinds of conversations. And I can't wait to have more of them with all of you. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Thank you.